We're going on a road trip on the x95's. So come on, come with me as we explore Interstate 495, or the Capital Beltway in the Washington, D.C. area, Interstate 295 in the state of Virginia, also known as the Richmond Bypass, and Interstate 295 in the states of Delaware, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania, or the Philadelphia Bypass. Personally, I've been on the Capital Beltway and the Richmond Bypass, but the Philly Bypass was requested by MathWizard534, so thanks to him for requesting the highway, and let's get on with the Philly Bypass first, because it's the longest of the three. Let's go! As you can see here, Interstate 295 begins near just south of Wilmington, crosses the Delaware River into New Jersey, follows the Delaware River in the state of New Jersey, until we get to around Interstate 195, and then curves around through Trenton, and finally ending just north of Philadelphia at Interstate 95. So we're going to be talking about northbound Interstate 295. So we begin down here on an intersection with Interstate 95 and 495 here in just south of Wilmington, Delaware, and 295 is signed for the Delaware Memorial Bridge, and to New York and New Jersey and the New Jersey Turnpike. And our first major intersection after leaving Interstate 95 is US Highway 13 and US 40, which is signed for the Newcastle Airport and Dover, while 295 is just signed for Delaware Memorial Bridge. Here we are crossing over the Delaware River on the Delaware Memorial Bridge into New Jersey. And our first major intersection in New Jersey is US Highway 130 and New Jersey 49, while 295 is signed north for Camden and Trenton, which is absolutely correct because you should sign 3-digit or suburbs on 3-digit interstates, not 2-digit. New Jersey. Also, it looks like there's a Cracker Barrel off this exit, which is a place I recommend. But sadly, Camden or Trenton is not seen on this mileage sign, but we do see Paulsboro, Belmar, and Ewing, which I've never heard of those places. Like, where are these places? And then our next major intersection is US Highway 322, which is signed east for Mullica Hill and west for Bridgeport. What? East 322 should be Atlantic City, and West 322 should be Philadelphia, while 295 is still signed correctly north for Trenton. Also, I can't believe it's this early into the video, and we have our first Hey I Know This Highway segment. It's all about US Highway 322. US 322 is 494 miles. It travels from Cleveland, Ohio to Atlantic City, crossing through Pennsylvania. It is the longest child of US Highway 22. My friend Coromont437 has made US 322 videos, so I'd recommend you go check those out. And some major intersections on US 322 is intersecting its and being concurrent with its parent route US 22, US 13, Interstate 90, Interstate 95, Interstate 99, US 220, Interstate 295 itself, and that's a little bit about US 322. So let's get back to Interstate 295. Here we can see US Highway 130 North about to cross and merge into Interstate 295 North. Sadly, we don't get any access to that. And at our random intersections on Interstate 295, we're still signed north for Trenton, which is absolutely correct. And here's US 130 leaving Interstate 295, and we're still signed north for Camden and Trenton, which is correct. Here I'm meeting Interstate 76, which is signed for Camden and Philadelphia, while 295 is still signed for Trenton. You can omit Camden from the sign with Philadelphia because Philadelphia just does it well by itself. You don't need no Camden on there. And then after leaving Interstate 76, we're now meeting US Highway 30, and 295 is still signed north for Trenton. Also, what in the world is that fraction? 1/10 of a mile? I thought only Pennsylvania did weird fractions. So we're still at random intersections. Interstate 295 is still signed north for Trenton, which is absolutely correct. And here we are meeting Interstate 95. Sadly, we have no access to it because this section of Interstate 95 is recently new, and there is no interchange to build with it. But at exit 56, you can get off there at US Highway 206 south, and you can take that road to Interstate 95. Also, exit 56 was requested by MathWizard534. Thanks to him for suggesting that exit and this entire highway. And then here, we are meeting US Highway 130 and US 206. And 295 is still signing north for Trenton. Here is a scenic overlook for the Delaware River, and we're not meeting Interstate 195 soon. And here are meeting Interstate 195, and Interstate 295 is now signed north for Princeton. I checked, and Princeton is off of US 1. That should be Philadelphia, because now we're coming into the Trenton area. On Interstate 195 itself, 295 is signed north to US 1 for Princeton. Here we are meeting US 1, and US 1 is signed for Trenton. What about Princeton? Because you're signing Princeton for US 1. And on US 1 itself, Interstate 295 is now signed for Philadelphia, which is correct. Also, now we're going in a more of a south direction, so it should be 295 north-south, 295 for Philadelphia. And here's old or new exit 69 or old exit 7 on Interstate 295, and it's US 206. Here we are crossing over the Delaware River once again into Pennsylvania this time. And in Pennsylvania, 295 is signed southwest for Philadelphia, which is correct. And here are meeting US 1 once again. US 1 is signed north for Trenton, while US 1 south is signed for Langhorne. What? It should be Philadelphia. And here's the last exit on Interstate 295 as we're about to merge into Interstate 95 itself. And then officially after that exit, we have a end 295 and begin Interstate 95. That's actually very nice for Philadelphia to do, giving us an end sign. And with that, we're going to be talking about Interstate 295 southbound. So we begin here at the junction with Interstate 95 and 295, and 295 is signed east for Trenton, or more north direction for Trenton, while 95 is signed north to the New Jersey Turnpike for New York. In our first major intersection on Interstate 295, we get the same Langhorne and Trenton for US 1. Trenton is a good choice for US 1 going north, but Langhorne is not. And here are crossing into New Jersey over the Delaware River. And it looks like they have a welcome sign. That is super rare to see, a New Jersey welcome sign. I thought they were only visible in Quarter Munch's 437 US 322 video, but apparently not. Here are meaning exit 69 once again, or old exit 7. And then here we are meeting US 1 again, and it's still signed for New Brunswick and Trenton, while 295 is just signed south. And on US 1 itself, Interstate 295 is just signed south. So I don't know what they're doing southbound 295, but 295 was absolutely perfect. And here are at exit 60 for Interstate 195 and New Jersey Highway 29. And on that exit itself, US 295 is signed for Camden and Princeton. Camden is a good choice. Here are meeting US Highway 130 once again. And on 130 itself, 295 is signed south for Camden. We have another mileage sign, but apparently Camden is not mentioned anywhere. We get Burlington, Belmore, and Pennsville, and here are crossing over Interstate 95 once again. And at random interchanges, Interstate 295 is still signed south for Camden. Here you are meeting US Highway 130, and now we're signed for the Delaware Memorial Bridge in Delaware. Here you are meeting Interstate 76, and it's still signed for Camden and Philadelphia. And this time, 295 is signed south for Delaware Memorial Bridge in Atlantic City. The reason Atlantic City is on there is because of New Jersey Highway 42. And here we are splitting off from New Jersey Highway 42, and we're just signed south for the Delaware Memorial Bridge. How about instead of that, you can do Baltimore. Here are meeting US 130 North, and US 130 South is going to be current with us as we head towards Delaware. At random interchanges, it's still signed for the Delaware Memorial Bridge. And here we are meeting US Highway 322 and US 130, as they're going to be splitting from us and signed for Bridgeport, while 295 is still again signed for the Delaware Memorial Bridge. And here we're meeting US Highway 322 East for Mullica Hill. It should not be Mullica Hill, that should be Atlantic City. And here are meeting US 130 and US 40, and US 40 is actually current with us as we cross over the Delaware Memorial Bridge. Here we are finally crossing over the Delaware Memorial Bridge, which was signed for like 40 something miles. And here we are back into Delaware, and 295 is signed south for Port of Wilmington and Baltimore. Baltimore's on the sign! Yay! And after meeting US Highway 13 and US 40, we finally meet Interstate 95, where Interstate 95 is signed south for Baltimore, and 95 is signed north for Wilmington. And 495 gets the ultimate control city of Philadelphia. That's cool, right? And here's the unceremonious end to Interstate 295 in the Delaware, New Jersey, Pennsylvania area. And with that, we're going to be moving on to a new segment I like to call All the Places I'll Go. So basically, if I was ever to be on this highway, because I haven't been on it before, I'll be showing all the places that I'd visit if I'd ever be on the highway. So these are all the places that I'd visit going in exit order. I'd first visit downtown Wilmington because I've never been to the state of Delaware before, so I'd visit downtown Wilmington. And then the Cracker Barrel off of New Jersey Highway 49 because I like Cracker Barrel. And then the northbound Interstate 295 rest area in New Jersey off of Mile 2 to get a New Jersey state map and to see what New Jersey is like. And then I'll visit the town of Mullica Hill because I know that there's an Amish country store there. And then I'll do the Delaware River Scenic Outlook around Mile 58 because I like to see the Delaware River and walk the trail along with the Canal State Park at Mile 58 to walk the trails and view the river. And then I'll visit the city of Trenton anywhere from exit 60 to 75. And finally, I'd visit Shady Brook Farm in Pennsylvania. And those are the places I'd visit on Interstate 295 in Delaware, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. We're now on to the second interstate of the video, Interstate 295 in Virginia, or commonly known as the Richmond Bypass. As you can see here, it is a bypass of Richmond, as it begins just south of Petersburg, Virginia, and continues east from Richmond. And then Interstate x95 just north of Richmond and intersecting Interstate 64 just west of Richmond. And we're going to be talking about northbound Interstate 295. So we begin just a mile south of the Interstate 295 exit, where you have this very cool sign where if you want to get to points north of Richmond, it'd be actually quicker to use Interstate 295 than it would be to stay on Mainline 95. And then we get the split for 295 North, and 295 is signed north for Washington. And our very first mileage sign on 295, Hopewell, is signed for 12 miles away, and Washington is 141. That's a very long distance. And this is the reason why Hopewell is signed, is because it's literally exit 9, the second exit on the highway. Shortly after meeting the Hopewell exit, we were crossing the James River on this very cool bridge. And after crossing the James River, our next major intersection is Virginia Highway A95, which is also a toll road. The thing is, I think the history behind this road is that they wanted to build it as a interstate, but there is a rule that you can't build interstate as toll roads, so Virginia just turned it into a state highway instead and called it 895. Here I'm meaning Interstate 64, and 64 is signed for Norfolk and Richmond. Those are correct choices. Well, 295 is still signed north for Washington. And on 64 itself, 295 is signed for Washington and Rocky Mount. And then our very next mileage time, Interstate 95 Junction is 10 miles away. Fredericksburg and Washington are both 95 control cities, but they're listed here. Here I mean US 301 and Virginia Highway 2, and they're signed for Hanover and Richmond. And here are meaning the first part of exit 43, Interstate 95 North for Washington, and 295 is now signed for Richmond and Charlottesville. And here's the other half of exit 43, and it's for Interstate 95 South and US 1, which is signed for Richmond and Ashland, which actually both highways are going to. Shortly after me leaving those two highways, we're leaving US Highway 33, which is signed east for Richmond and west for Montpelier. And on US 33 itself, Interstate 295 is signed for Charlottesville. Here are meeting Interstate 64 West for Charlottesville, and the last exit is Interstate 64 East for Richmond. Here is the close-up view of Interstate 64 East, and this is the end of Interstate 295. So we're going to be turning around and doing southbound Interstate 295. So we begin here at the 295-64 junction, and Interstate 295 is signed for Washington and Norfolk and the Richmond Airport. And our first major intersection on Interstate 295 is again US 33, and it's signed the same cities as it was going northbound. And we get a mileage sign, and Interstate 95 junction is 6 miles away, and the Richmond International Airport and Interstate 64 are the same distance at 20 miles away. Here are meaning Interstate 95 in US 1 once again, and 295 is now signed south for Norfolk and Rocky Mount, and the Richmond International Airport. And on US 1 itself, 295 is signed south for Norfolk and Rocky Mount, so it is the same on Interstate 95 itself. Here are meaning US Highway 301 and Virginia Highway 2. And we actually get a mention for Interstate 64, and if you want to go to either Williamsburg, Norfolk, or Virginia Beach, the Interstate 64 exit is 12 miles away. But we're going to be focused on US Highway 301 and Virginia Highway 2 for the main segment, Hey, I Know This Highway. And US Highway 301 is 1,099 miles long. It is the longest of the child routes of US 1. It travels all the way from roughly central Florida all the way up to Delaware, and it meets US Highway 50, unsigned Interstate 595, Virginia Highway 2, US 158, and US 41. It parallels Interstate 95 through the Carolinas, and for the first 105 miles in Virginia, which is a long distance if you ask me, but that's a little bit about US 301. I hope you enjoyed this segment of Hey, I Know This Highway, and let's get back to the main one. So shortly after meeting the US 301, we have another mileage sign, which I think is cool. The Richmond International Airport is now listed at the top, which is 10 miles away, and Interstate 64 is also 10 miles away, and the Interstate 95 is now 40. Here are meeting Interstate 64, and 64 signed east for Norfolk, and 64 signed west for Richmond, while 295 is now just signed south for Rocky Mount. Here are meeting Virginia 895 once again, which is signed for Richmond and the Richmond International Airport. And then we have another mileage sign, and Hopewell is back, and it's 16 miles away, and Rocky Mount is on the bottom line at 120. Here we are crossing the James River once again, and this time around I skipped the Hopewell exit and jumped straight all the way down to Interstate 95. So here's a warning thing that if you want to, that you're about to be on Interstate 95 South, you'd use the left lane because the right lane is exit 1 for Interstate 95 North. In fact, here's the exit, and we have a mention of Interstate 85. And 95 is now signed south for Emporia and Rocky Mount. And shortly later, we are merging into 95 South, and we're going to be continuing south on Interstate 95 until we reach Miami. And thus ends Interstate 295. And we move on to all the places I'll go. And since I've been on this interstate many times before, I'd list places that I visit for the first time or revisit since I've been there before. So the first place I'd visit for the first time is Petersburg National Battlefield off of US 460 or Exit 3. And then I'd revisit the Keystone Antique Truck and Tractor Museum off of Exit 9 because I haven't been there in like 5 years. I want to see if there's anything new or something. And I actually took pictures the last time I went there of these small little control cities they had in one of their display rooms. Like how cute those control cities are. And then I'd revisit the Dairy Queen off of Exit 22. I stopped there one time while traveling back up to my home in Virginia one time. And I'll visit for the first time the Richmond National Battlefield off of Exit 34. And then I'll visit the community of Mechanicsville, which is off of Exit 37 and 41. Because I found out that Mechanicsville is like huge. It has like 40,000 people. And then I would visit Short Pump or downtown Richmond via Interstate 64 East or Exit 53. So those are the places that I visit or revisit on Interstate 295 in Virginia. And we're finally on the third interstate of the video, Interstate 495, or the Capital Beltway in Washington, D.C., with a portion without Interstate 95. As you can see here, we're doing the Interstate 495 begins at the Springfield interchange, heads northwest into Maryland, where it meets Interstate 270, and then continues to head east till it meets Interstate 95 in the northeastern quadrant of the Beltway. And we're going to be talking about northbound Interstate 495. As you can see here, we're about to enter into the Springfield interchange, and we have the option to stay on 495 East and 95 North for Baltimore, or you can take exit 170B for 495 North Tyson's Corner. And then the very first exit on Interstate 495 is exit 54 for secondary route 620. And then here, our first major intersection on Interstate 495 is US Highway 50, and 495 is signed for north or we don't know. Here you are meeting Interstate 66, and Interstate 66 is signed for west for Front Royal and east for Washington. Those are some good choices. Honestly, we don't know what to sign for west, but Front Royal is a good option because that's where it meets Interstate 81. And on 66 itself, 495 is signed north for Baltimore and Tyson's. Okay. Here I'm marking Virginia Highway 267 or the Dulles Road or the Dulles Tollway, and 495 is signed just north 495 like it always does. Also, I've never been to the Dulles Airport, but I have been to the Reagan Airport that is also in the Arlington, Washington, D.C. area. The reason is I just fly regional, so we just go to a national or regional airport. And then here are meeting the George Washington Memorial Parkway, which is a National Scenic Byway, if you did not know that. And we're also meeting exit 44 for Virginia 193. And then shortly after, we cross the Potomac River into Maryland, and we have our first mileage sign on here. Interstate 270 Junction is 4 miles away, Interstate 95 Junction is 15. And then shortly after exit 41, we have a Welcome to Maryland sign. That's cool. And then shortly after that, we meet Interstate 270, which 270 is signed for Rockville and Frederick. Interesting for Rockville, but Frederick is a good choice because that's where 270 meets 70 and US 40 and US 15. While 495 is signed for Bethesda and Baltimore. And then shortly after that, we're meeting Maryland Highway 355, which is signed for Bethesda. The reason why I'm showing 355 is because did you know that Maryland 355 is part of the National Highway System? Yes, the state highway is part of the National Highway System. Well, the part from like where it meets the DC border all the way up to Interstate 495. The rest of the highway isn't. And Maryland 355 itself, 495 is signed for Baltimore and Silver Springs. Here we are meeting US 29 and Maryland Highway 193. And then shortly after meeting US Highway 29, we meet Interstate 95, and we're just now assigned south for Richmond. And we're going to be turning around and doing southbound Interstate 495. So we begin here on the other side on the southbound lanes, and 495 is now signed west for Beltway and Silver Spring. 195 is exiting off north towards Baltimore. And our first major intersection that we did not get on the northbound is Maryland Highway 650. Other exit request, or actually two, exits 29 and 30, and they were requested by Tiger Raven 7552, exit 29 from Maryland Highway 193, which takes you to US Highway 29 North, and exit 30 for US Highway 29 South, which takes you into Washington, D.C. So thank you to him for suggesting these highways, and let's get back. Here are Maryland Highway 355 and Interstate 270, and this time around 270 just gets north for Frederick, while 355 gets Bethesda and Rockville. Okay. And then here is 270 splitting off from 495, and 495 just now gets Northern Virginia. Alright. And then at random interchanges, we're just now assigned for Northern Virginia and Fairfax. And here we are about to cross over the Potomac River into Virginia, and we have the exit for George Washington Memorial Parkway. Here we are entering into Virginia after crossing the Potomac River. And at random interchanges here in Virginia, we have a mention of Richmond for southbound 495, while 495 north is signed for Rockville. Why Rockville? It should be Bethesda. And here we are meeting the George Washington Memorial Parkway once again. And here are meeting the Dulles Toll Road once again, and this time around that exit 45A was suggested by Quartermunch 437, because the reason why he suggested this exit is because his grandparents live off of the Dulles Toll Road. So that's very cool. And this actually brings us into the third and final hey, I know this highway, and it's all about the Dulles Toll Road. So we are talking about Virginia Highway 267. As you can see here, Virginia 267 begins just south of Leesburg, Virginia, and travels along the Dulles Greenway until it meets the Dulles International Airport, and then it becomes the Dulles Toll Road and intersecting Interstates 495, Interstate 66, and US Highway 15. It is the director to the Dulles Airport, and it's a toll road for its entire length, so if you want to get to places on Virginia Highway 267, sadly you are going to have to pay a toll. That's a little bit about Virginia Highway 267. I hope you enjoyed this segment, and let's get back to Interstate 495. And then here we are meeting Interstate 66, and it's signed for Manassas and Front Royal. And sadly we don't have any direct access to Interstate 66 East. But on Interstate 66 itself, 495 is signed south for Richmond and Alexandria. That's cool. And here are meeting US Highway 50 at exit 50, which also takes you to US Highway 29. for Fairfax and Arlington. And it looks like for the Easy Pass Express exits, we're meeting Interstate 95 and 395 in 6 miles. And 6 miles later, we meet here at the famous Springfield interchange, where we have many options to go in many directions. And with that, we end Interstate 495 and move on to my newest segment, Oh, the Places I'll Go. And like I said before, I've been on this interstate before, and I'm going to list the visits I'd either visit for the first time, or I'd revisit again if I ever am on this highway again. And for the first city that I'd revisit is actually Bethesda, Maryland. I've actually been here before, but it was during the sunset, so nighttime, so I never really got to see what the city was like. And then I'd revisit the George Washington Memorial Parkway. It was a nice drive the first time I'd been on it, so I'd like to go on it again. And then I'd actually visit Tyson's Corner for the first time, because it looks like there's a lot to do, and it's a really big suburb in the Washington, D.C. metro area. I'd also like to visit the city of Alexandria for the first time. And I'd revisit the Annandale Church of Christ if I'm ever in the DC metro area. And then for the first time, I would like to visit the community of Springfield, Virginia. And I'd also like to visit the city of Arlington, Virginia for the first time, and not just drive through there. And then for the final one, I'd like to revisit Washington, D.C. for a 5th time, because I've been there 4 times before. And these are all the exits that I can take to get to Washington, D.C. And those are all the places that I visit on the Capitol Beltway. Thank you all so much for watching my X95 video. It was a lot of information to process because we did 3 highways. What are you expecting? You're going to be learning a lot from learning about 3 different interstates. Well, for my next plan, I'm going to be taking a week off to focus on my US X66 videos, and then after Halloween, I'm going to be working on US 62. So stay tuned for those highways. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.